So just recently, my eldest son was visiting from Austin, Texas. And a couple of years ago, he and I had gone to Pohansko and experienced some very strange foggy mist that really quite freaked us out. And if you haven't seen the video, I will put the link down below. So we thought we'd go back and see what this mist could be. Well, in fact, on the way, we bumped into these very nice trees. And the forest has these trees that are named and signposted, so you can actually stop and read about the tree. It's a magical forest. Anyway, we eventually made it to where we'd seen the mist, and despite the fact that it was raining and we hadn't seen any mist anywhere else, it still did look a little bit misty down the bottom end there. So we decided we'd better go take a look. First of all, we just checked we're in the right place, and we were, and then we set off to have a look. In fact, the previous time we'd been here, we were quite disconcerted by this mist. Was it a Slavic mist? Was it a paranormal mist? Was there a ghost? Whatever it was. We went down and looked. We couldn't see anything that would sort of explain the mist until I noticed this. There, just where the mist would have started, were these two animal skulls attached to this post. So one has to ask, is there a relationship between these animal skulls and the misty nature of this place, this paranormal Slavic mist? Or is it just coincidence? Who knows? So the rain continued to pour and pour and pour, but we still decided we'd go to Pohansko and take a look. This is an archaeological site, but before we get to the actual archaeological site, there's also some World War II bunkers, and so we thought we'd just take another look at this bunker before continuing on to Pohansko itself. Now, we didn't know if Pohansko would be open because it was October, horrible day, getting dark fairly early, that kind of thing. But in fact, we found it was open, and furthermore, they'd changed up the presentation. So I did video some of the presentation because it shows you what Pohansko would have looked like during the Slavic era. Here we go. It was a walled enclosure, quite large, and at one time it was quite well populated. This shows it more sparsely populated. What it was of interest was the interior enclosure for the whoever ran the place, I guess, where there was in fact a stone church. Now the funny thing was that the last time we'd been to Pohansko, the exhibition really focused on the Slavic paganism and the fact that there was a pagan site here. This time around, the whole pagan aspect was gone and replaced with a very strongly Christian perspective. In fact, the presenter of this video in the video is a Christian monk or priest. I found that rather interesting. Why the sudden switch from emphasizing the paganism to Christianity? This kind of reconstruction really helps you visualize what such a settlement would have looked like during this 800 to 1000 period of history in which this area was basically the Moravian princedom, Slavic princedom, and doing quite well. Here is a reconstruction of the stone church, which is quite sizable. And in fact, the archaeological remains of this church can be visited and seen. And there were many, many burials and all kinds of grave goods as well. And some of the grave goods are absolutely exquisite workmanship in gold and semi-precious stones. Quite unbelievable workmanship, in fact. Well, I was still interested to see if some of the pagan exhibits were still there, and I recalled that there was a pagan site exhibited outside of the Pohansko hunting lodge building, and so we went out back to take a quick look, whilst admiring the architecture and general locale of the Pohansko hunting lodge. The pagan site is represented by these wooden idols to the pagan gods of the Slavic pantheon, and this reconstruction of a Slavic home of the time period and of the type that existed according to the archaeological evidence at this Pohansko site. Not a bad little house, actually, quite livable. And notice the skull on the outside of the building. Coincidence? Who knows? Well, if you enjoy these little presentations, one way you can help us is by buying some merchandise available from GaryMVasey.com. Details below, and if you would kindly subscribe, I'd love that.